Hello, and welcome to another episode of Chuchu Reviews, the show where I take 4 random, unrelated albums, and I throw them in a blender, and then I review them, I rate them, and I rank them. Simplicity achieved. 3 of the selections this week were pulled from the comments, so if you have an album you'd like to see featured, why not drop a suggestion, and who knows, you might just get lucky. So let's introduce this week's combatants in alphabetical order. First we have How Will I Know If Heaven Will Find Me by the Amazons from 2022, which was nominated by Oliver29. Then we have Gravity Stairs by Crowded House from 2024, which is my own personal pick for inclusion. Next we have Killing Joke by Killing Joke from 2003, which was nominated by Tailtube. Finally we have Who Killed the Zutons by the Zutons from 2004, which was nominated by Stee. So, now the battle lines have been drawn, let's be complete rankers and rank up a storm. This is Chuchu Reviews. Coming in last place this week, we have Who Killed the Zutons by the Zutons from 2004, which was the band's debut LP. And here we have an album of 1970s revival that managed to get a good bit of traction in the UK during the second coming of Britpop, hitting number 6 on the British album chart and going 2 times platinum, recalling the success of Kuda Shaker during the original Britpop innings. But for me, this album is very hit or miss. I should preface this by saying that 1970s revival has never really been my thing. I mean, yeah, if you've been paying attention then you'll know that I love Supergrass and Kuda Shaker, but those are definitely the exceptions rather than the rule. I generally try to stay an arm's length away from bands such as Jet, Kings of Leon and Greta Van Fleet. That's just not my cup of tea. Which is kind of a running theme on this particular episode of Chuchu Reviews. I guess I should have probably changed the title of this episode to Chuchu Reviews Records from Genres He Doesn't Really Like, but it's not quite as catchy, is it? Anyway, we'll get straight down to the nitty gritty here. For me, this is more or less an album of 2 halves. The first half is pretty good. Maybe My Patience is higher and the song quality is definitely better, but aside from Remember Me, which is saved by some crystalline guitar arpeggiation and a sprightly chorus, the second side is a bit of a wasteland that I progressively get more and more tired of as it rolls on, ultimately becoming a bit of a chore to get through. It's exactly the kind of music that reminds me of why I'm often cautious of modern 1970s revival bands. Regarding the high spots of side 1, Pressure Point is a lot of fun with its chanting catchiness and spacious composition that throws just enough focus on each instrument. You Will, You Won't has a harmonised sing-along chorus to enjoy and a cool Britpoppy swagger, as well as an obvious mainstream hit appeal. Confusion is a nicely delicate, cleanly textured ballad, even though it unashamedly nicks the bass line from Billy Joel's An Innocent Man, #Justice for Billy. While Havana Gang Brawl has a dramatic yet silly kind of theatricality about it that's fairly amusing. To be honest, I can't really be bothered to dive into the mediocre repetitive snooze fest of the second half. Someone once said, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, which really should have ruled out Donald Trump's entire existence. But I will note a weird but annoying quirk that weaves its way across several tracks on the record, which is a descending 4-note riff. Basically it's like bum 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 bum. There are a bunch of tracks that rely on this hook. I mean, sure, they're played in different octaves and at different pitches, but for other musicians like myself who have written and recorded albums, that's pretty fucking see-through. I'd personally be really embarrassed to include 4 songs on an album that revolve around the same kind of thinly disguised hook. But yeah, I'll put this one down to a case of it's just not for me-itis. It was successful and many people seemingly loved the shit out of it. I do like certain tracks, but overall I do get rather bored of Who Killed the Zutons over the long run. I mean, I don't entirely wish that I was the one who killed the Zutons, but after dredging through the tepid likes of Nightmare Part 2, Not a Lot to Do and Dirty Dance Hall, I also wouldn't begrudge my fingerprints on the trigger of that rifle, or their saxophone player's ass, but hey, let's not get lewd here. 2.5 stars. Coming in next, we have Gravity Stairs by Crowded House, which was the Australian/New Zealand Legends' 8th LP from just a few weeks ago in May 2024. And I have quite a bit of goodwill stored up for Crowded House, so I'd absolutely love to report that they've come back in world-beating form here. But they haven't, so I can't. Sadly, this is another typically alright late-period Crowded House record. As with the majority of the band's relatively recent output, it isn't bad. It's too melodically pleasant and ignorably lightweight for that. But there's also nothing that really grabs the attention either. This record is a totally middle-of-the-road, soft rock, enjoyably pleasant yet instantly forgettable release. As I said, it's much like the lion's share of the band's post-reunion work. Stylistically speaking, this LP follows on from the band's last album, Dreamers Are Waiting, employing the same type of echo-laden, reverb-heavy soundscape. This is a bit of a double-edged sword, as while it does create a dreamy texture and sense of cohesion, it also conspires to beat the energy and individuality out of the tracks. Basically speaking, it makes all the songs sound overly similar. As for highlights, Teenage Summer is a melodic, vaguely anthemic tune with a nice little lift-off towards the close. All That I Can Ever Own is a lovely acoustic-leaning track with a nice Beatlesy melody and some psychedelic touches here and there. Oh Hi and I Can't Keep Up With You are more upbeat-sounding tracks that bounce along, adding a few rays of sunshine to the track list. Blackwater White Circle has a trippy off-kilter aspect that's fairly entertaining, while Some Greater Plan has a beautifully languorous, Richard Hawley-esque grandiose sweep to its 1950s inflected balladry. As for specific negatives aside from the homogenized general sound of the record, Blurry Glass is a bit wishy-washy and kinda dull, while Thirsty is a late album ambient time waster that doesn't really do anything interesting. But yeah, to be fair, there's not much here that doesn't at least hit the rank of pleasant. The record is okay, it's fine, and feels pretty much in line with the rest of the band's late period output. But if that sounds like being damned by faint praise, well then perhaps it is, and perhaps my score should reflect that. 3 stars. Next up we have How Will I Know If Heaven Will Find Me by the British indie rock band The Amazons, which was their third LP from 2022 and a pretty successful one, hitting number 5 on the UK albums chart. And what we have here is a pretty typical album of anthemic stadium rock that sounds trapped somewhere between Coldplay, Ed Sheeran and Biffy Clyro. It sounds tailor-made to spit forth innocuously from the daytime FM radio waves. And to that end, its mass-produced sounding slick arena rock doesn't feel too far away from the Crowded House record we just covered. It's okay. It's fine, it's alright. It's pretty much dead centre of what you would expect from this particular genre at this particular point in musical history. But it also isn't anything to shout about either. It's very middle of the road. That said, it is a bit more spiky than the Crowded House LP. And I don't just mean that in the sense of guitar snarl, but also in quality too. The best tracks on this are better than anything on Gravity Stairs, but on the flip side, the worst tracks are also worse than anything on Gravity Stairs. So the fulcrum point between the two is pretty hard to find. As for the high spots, the opening stadium anthem, How Will I Know, has an obvious mass market appeal, as does the following Blood Rush with its nice stomping pace. Both have that super shiny, sleek FM radio sheen that sounds like a license for the record label to print money. There's a Light has a direct grooving bass line propelling its movement and an upbeat sugary thrum. One by One is pretty cool with its hazy acoustic build-up and climactic brooding guitar explosion. The likes of Wait For Me and In The Morning have a fun sense of clattering energy about them. While the best track on the album, Ready For Something, is awesome. Its slithering groove, catchy chorus and badass metal-tinged guitar break marking it out as an instant win. As for lowlights, Say It Again is as smoothly bland a ballad as you're ever likely to find, and sounds handcrafted to have everybody lifting their lighters aloft in the tampon aisle of your local Tesco's. Northern Star is a romantically inclined acoustic ballad that's about as commanding as Joe Biden in a presidential debate. While For the Night is a cookie-cutter piano ballad that sounds like the closing track from every typical subpar 2000s American stadium rock record ever recorded, which, if I do say so myself, is a sick burn. So yeah, any long-time viewer of the channel will likely know that slick stadium rock is just not my cup of tea. Neither is the really smooth typical pop vocal style that's unfortunately the zeitgeist these days. This album has both these aspects, so it had an uphill battle with me every step of the way. However, whilst I didn't like certain parts of this record, I really did enjoy other parts of it. And I do think that there's ultimately more good than bad on offer here. 3.5 stars. Coming in first and taking home the Chuchu Reviews gold medal this week, we have the second self-titled album by the English post-punk, metal and industrial band Killing Joke from 2003, which is often referred to as Killing Joke 2003 in order to avoid confusion with their other self-titled record. Which immediately begs the question, why have two self-titled albums? It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, this was a highly influential Act's 11th LP and is generally considered to be one of the band's best. It's also notable for having David Grohl behind the drum kit for the entire duration of the record. And what we have here is a pretty brutal, chugging metal album that sinks itself into oppressively dark and grimy soundscapes, doing its utmost to avoid any semblance of melody and foregoing most instrumental niceties such as guitar solos or, well, anything except the relentless glowering chug. As such, the record falls right into the follow spot of the type of metal that I just don't care for and tend to avoid like the plague. But against all odds, I quite like this record. As an instrument for the delivery of adrenaline, it works incredibly well. The entire record hums with a barely contained rage that makes you want to collect your nan from the nursing home and jump headfirst with her into the nearest circle pit or grind wall. And that rage nicely extends to the lyrics too, which are actually really interesting and cool, thrumming with disgust at the government, the crackdowns on freedoms and relentless warmongering. Although the album was made in 2003, it really feels like it was meant for 2024. My god, the world has gone to the dogs, it really, really has. I'm sure that the growling, shouty singer Jazz Coleman must be apoplectic at the state of the modern world. Anyway, high spots on a pretty consistent LP includes Total Invasion, which thunders along its grimy industrial rut before blasting off into a catchy soaring chorus. Asteroid is ridiculously heavy, its grinding guitar assault tempting you to take massive bumps of smack and watch the Nick Cage movie Mandy on repeat for 72 hours straight. Implant rails hard against government control, strongly resisting registered movement, with Coleman concluding, "Tear up your ID card and stick your implant up your ass." Likewise, Blood on Your Hands delivers more wanton energy, while deservedly laying into greedy, profit-hungry corporations the world over. You'll Never Get to Me sets aside the typical chugging metal guitars and instead leans into more shimmering jangle territory, albeit thread through a monster distortion machine. It makes for a much appreciated tonal change-up. While Dark Forces has some dramatic synths and a thumb-thrashing theatricality about it, as well as some very pertinent lyrics. Economy's failed. Start a war machine, devoid of moral cause, as we witness the end of international laws. So yeah, very much to my surprise, this Killing Joke LP is pretty darn good at doing what it does. I don't think this genre is ever going to be my go-to, but I did enjoy this particular serving of it. 4 stars. And that's another episode of Chuchu Reviews in the bag. Of course, I know you'd rank these records differently, so why not sound off in the comments and tell me which one would have won for you? And maybe drop a nomination while you're there. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and all that other kind of YouTube jazz. Make sure to take care of yourself, but most importantly, just keep on ranking.
Taking to the hit shots, keep taking the ground. 1 second, let's roll.